Hello Nurlan. In this screencast, I'm going to give you feedback to last week's summary. So let's begin. In the video, title of video, good. The speaker, the name of the speaker, good. Argues, okay, that's a good word to use. Argues with the argument of racial biases and other lines of difference in the country. Yeah, what is the argument really? I mean, you've used a good reporting verb, but you probably want to use a that clause and then just say what the main idea is, because really this is not very clear. Argues with the argument of racial biases. I'm not sure what that means. And other lines of racial difference. What is the argument? I mean, what is his main argument? So, argues that or claims that, and then finish the sentence with after that clause. Argues that. What's the main idea? You really haven't said anything. Argues with the argument and other lines of difference in the country. I'm not sure. The speaker gives differentiation about implicit bias and adds some characteristics of it. Okay. Why differentiation though? Here, I'm not sure what you're trying to say. Gives differentiation about the implicit bias and adds some characteristics of it. You can just say that the speaker discusses what he calls the three main characteristics of implicit biases. That's enough. And then you can just say what these are. First, second, third. First characteristic, biases are subconscious. Second, biases are basically they're often in opposition to or contrary or contradict our conscious beliefs. And third, they're based on or triggered by quick automatic associations. So very briefly, you can discuss the three characteristics, right? Here. Briefly and succinctly, using cohesive devices, you can talk about them in three separate sentences. First, second, third, or additionally, however you want to say it. Another characteristic Hockett mentions, however you want to put it. Use reporting verbs and cohesive devices, but mention those, discuss them clearly. Because you haven't really discussed them here. In addition, he provides examples of these characteristics in the example. Okay, there's too many examples here. And remember, we stay away from examples. Remember, there's no evidence or examples in our summary. So, what we're interested in is the supporting ideas, not how they are exemplified. So we stay away from examples. And the supporting ideas in this case are the characteristics. Very clearly and simply, you can just list them. First, second, third. Okay, so no need for any of this. After that, he gives quick exercises for the audience to reflect on the few words on the screen and or call out an association. So you're trying to describe the game basically that he plays, that experiment with the audience. Okay, fine, but again, that's not really a supporting idea. This is something that he uses to illustrate his idea. And his idea was that the third characteristic of these biases is that they are triggered by quick and automatic mental associations. So I think that's what you need to do. Focus on the supporting idea and not so much on that game with the audience, which is just another example. So he illustrates this point by having this game, but really we're not interested in the game. We're interested in the supporting idea. So here just focus on the supporting idea. The third characteristic of biases. They are triggered by quick automatic associations. At the end of the call response, he wants to clarify the meaning. Yeah, there's absolutely no need for this. If we don't even mention the call and response, then, and even if you did mention it, what does that add here? Wants to clarify the meaning of this exercise and give some sciences explanations of this. Yeah, that doesn't really add very much. Scientific explanations. Yeah, I think just forget about this. Focus on the supporting ideas. Now, to focus on these implicit biases, he presents 3 reasons. Okay, which can move the country forward. Sure, he does offer 3 recommendations, and he does call them reasons actually. That's fine, you can call them reasons if you want to, since he calls them that, but they're really recommendations. And now you want to list them very clearly, just like here. Remember 3 characteristics? Now another list, 3 recommendations. And what are they? Again, you have not listed them. You haven't discussed them. So we need to discuss his recommendations. And the recommendations are, first, we need to develop an awareness of our own biases, what he calls diagnosing the problem. Now, you don't have to repeat his words, you could use your own words. So you can say, we need to become aware, we need to develop an awareness of our own biases, and only then can we start solving the problem. First, you become aware, you diagnose the problem, then you try to fix it. So that's the first step. Second recommendation, he does mention being predictive and preventive, but you need to explain here. He claims that the country needs to have predictive preventive approaches. Okay, but what are these approaches? What does that mean? These are just 2 adjectives, right? He does mention them, but what does this mean? This preventive or predictive approach, right? So you do need to explain this in a separate sentence. I think that would be the best idea. What he was talking about was basically we need to be able to predict situations which we may find ourselves in and which may trigger biases in us. So we need to be able to predict that and then do everything possible to avoid our biases. That's the preventive approach that he's talking about. So instead of just these 2 adjectives which do not mean much, just focus on that approach. What is it? We need to be able to predict. We need to learn how to predict situations which can potentially trigger biases in us, and then do everything possible to avoid them. You know, something like that. You could say it in your own words. And third, or the third recommendation Hockett offers, he does mention shame, but it's not very clear. It's not that the main challenges in the country is self-shaming. I mean, the country has so many other challenges. He did mention shame, but that was not really what he was talking about. He was saying that we need to engage in open discussion of our own biases without guilt or shame. We need to realize we have these biases and we need to start honestly discussing them without feeling ashamed. And only then can we start fixing the problem. So here you want to clarify this, right? That's his third recommendation, and I would just say you can just focus on the honest discussion. We need to engage in honest discussion of our own biases. without guilt or shame. That was his third recommendation. Consequently, he believes that it is important to deal with implicit biases. Fine. To change internal and external behaviors and actions. Okay, fine. You don't need to repeat his words. He did talk about internal and external work. So if you want to, and I think it'll be a good idea to rephrase this, you can just say, finally, Hockett recommends that we start from the inside. We get very serious about our own biases. We address our own biases, start working from the inside, and only then can we hope to produce positive change in society or something like that, right? So in this way, you do not have to repeat his own words, but if you do, you've just repeated internal and external, that's fine. You can do that, but it's just not very clear what these external behaviors are. It's just vague here. You see? What is internal and external behavior? To somebody who has not seen the video, it's not going to be very clear. So again, you need to clarify this. You can just say that we need to start from the inside. Start analyzing or working on our own biases, and then we can produce positive change in the world. Something like that. Okay, I hope this was helpful to you, Nurlan. Good luck.